Well, welcome to Black Men Speak. It's a live stream podcast that highlights ordinary Black men doing extraordinary things. And before we really get into today's topic and our guest, I want to show you a clip because it's one of my favorite movies, and I think it's very apropos for what we're going to talk about today. So, um, check this out.
Really selling a lot of things, just not this. I don't want you out here shooting all around all day and night, right? Never let somebody tell you. You got a dream, you got to protect it. People can't do something themselves. They want to tell you you can't do it. You want something, go get it. Period.
Man, that's a powerful movie. If anyone hasn't seen it, it's the Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith and his son Jaden. It's probably one of my favorites, along with Hitch. If anyone knows who, with my relationship coaching, those are the two ones. Not Independence Day, not Men in Black. These are the two movies. But and that's one thing that's great about that movie because it was not just about being happy, but it was about a black man really going after his dream, believing in his abilities, and going after it. Um, and that in itself can be challenging for our young, especially our young black men up to age 25. There was a census report that I found, and it's basically said that, and this was the 2008 census, only 29% of black males had a high school diploma, and then only 21% of those had some high school or only went up to the ninth grade, but they didn't have a degree. So that can be very telling. And there were some other, reports, as far as how many had an undergrad degree, and only 5% had a grad degree. And so when it comes to dreams and thinking about, future and what you want to do or what you want to be, that can be challenging. But what was, but today's guest um, actually kind of embodied what Will Smith talked about in that movie: having dreams and protecting them no matter when, and don't let anybody take them from you. And my guest today, who I've actually known a very long time, um, you know, through our All-State days. So that we're talking about when I was in my 20s, and his name is Roy Shuler, and he's a gifted and talented and a charismatic communicator, long enchanted with public speaking, storytelling, and the power of words. He began, oddly enough, everyone began his acting career in 2007 at the age of 42 and it all started with a nondescript role in a regional commercial, and we'll go over that. But while working in corporate America, it was his faith and determination that opened the doors to additional commercials, voiceover, and community theater, TV, and print model opportunities. And so, and I've known this for a very long time, but it really resonated when I think last year, when I saw him, just watching Saturday Night Live, and I think it was the address about I think President Biden, I think, and I was like, wait, I know that brother. That's Roy Shuler, and it really did me proud to just see someone that was going after it and still going after it no matter when. So, and that's really what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to bring him up and we're just going to chat. Hey, Roy, what's up, man?
Hey, what's happening, man? How you doing, Keith? Good to see you.
Great, great. Have you seen that movie, Pursuit of Happiness?
I did. I did. I remember seeing it in the theater, and I may have seen it with my younger daughters, Sydney and Jordan, when they were kids. I think,
Okay.
but I do remember seeing that. Yeah, it was a
I don't know.
powerful movie.
Did you tear up? Because I know I did.
At some point, I could have. I really don't remember. And I think the movie came out in 2007, so it was a little while ago. But there
Okay.
may have been some moments, man, where I was particularly moved when I think he and his son was sleeping, maybe in a bathroom or
Oh,
like
yes, yes.
that. Or, yeah, so,
Yes, that is yeah, well, that was a crazy moment. Yeah, because he
yeah,
was homeless and he didn't have anywhere I think he'd gotten kicked out. He didn't have anywhere to stay.
right,
And he
right,
stayed in the bathroom when somebody was trying to get in. Yeah,
right,
that was pretty
yeah,
crazy scene there. But
yeah.
yeah, so thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for the
And
invitation,
so
man. I appreciate it.
yeah, so you in your in your bio, you said you had a kind of a feeling for this very early on in life. So even though you really started to follow this, much later. So
Right.
what really fed your passion into the kind of spoken word earlier in life?
Um, Part of it's funny you should ask because when I was 11 years old in 1976, Stevie Wonder released his magnum or magnus opus, "Songs in the Key of Life," 1976, and that was an event when that album came out. And I've always been enchanted by music, but that was one of the first albums that had the lyrics to all the songs.
Okay,
And I was
yeah,
walking down Lenox Avenue today, and I was listening to Spotify, and the song "As" came on,
oh
and
right,
it took me back to, and I was not far from where I grew up here in Harlem, right? So it took me back to a point where we had that album, and at one point, Keith, I knew the lyrics to all those doggone songs because of that lyric book.
yes,
So
I used to love reading it too.
yeah, man. So, "As" and "Sir Duke," "I Wish," "Pastime Paradise," "Knocks Me Off My Feet," all those songs that had all those lyrics really introduced me to the power of words and telling stories, stories in the form of songs. So that was one thing that happened. When I was in the sixth grade, I had a teacher. She was fine too, Miss Holly. She was fine,
Okay,
right? And we had to do a commercial in class, and I made it. I did it. There was a wine called Wild Irish Rose, and I changed it to Roy's Irish Rose. And I had my friend Lorenzo come up and do a testimonial, like he was playing Walt Frazier, who was my favorite basketball player. So the reason I share that quickly is because upon reflection, there were some benchmark moments along the way that fed me eventually becoming an actor, but I didn't recognize them at that time,
hmm
pointing me in that direction. But it really started with a love of songs, and "Songs in the Key of Life" is I'll always have a special feeling for that album because of again it really introduced me to the power of words and storytelling, and that's what actors do. We tell stories using words and emotions.
okay, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, anyone that really loves music, at
Hmm.
least maybe in our generation,
Yeah,
not only love the beats and everything, but the words and the stories that were told
yeah,
and can
yeah.
recall. I mean, that's one of my favorite albums as well.
Amazing.
And so I could see how that would resonate.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And so you said you grew up in Harlem
Uh-huh.
and you you went to school locally. We have a kind of a rivalry. I went to Georgetown, you went to St. John's.
Right, right.
And so what was it like, or what kind of student were you at St. John's?
I mean, I was a good student up until senior year. This senioritis thing hit me, man.
Okay.
I don't know what happened, but I was always pretty diligent with the books. It was not a concern of mine, a concern of my parents for me to perform academically. So I was a pretty decent student at St. John's. It was a good experience, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
likewise.
I do remember in '85 when we went to the Final Four and Georgetown, you know, beat us
Yes.
in the Final Four. And I think you guys lost to Villanova that year at
We
Pinckney, right?
did, we did. And
Yeah.
that kind of sealed the deal for me because I did, when you talk about dreams, right? So my dream was to I said, I'm gonna go to the school that wins the tournament.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay.
It wasn't about, me. It was like whoever wins, that's where I'm going. But
Hmm.
Villanova had won that year, and I was like, no, I can't do it.
Right.
I can't do it.
Gotcha.
Not knowing about the scandal, but it was like, no, I'm gonna go ahead and go to Georgetown, and
Right.
was glad I did. But yeah, and so then you end up at Allstate. Was that your first job out of school at
I
Allstate?
had a job for maybe a couple of months. I was selling copiers and fax machines in Midtown Manhattan for a small company, and that didn't pan out. And then I ended up, I think that job ended around November of '87, and I ended up starting with Allstate about a month later. So I started in claims, and then you and I met when I got promoted to underwriting toward the end of 1990.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, 1990. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Yeah.
Man. Yeah.
And because I want to talk about not a lot, but what
Yeah.
was your what do you feel your experience was at Allstate?
It was my first real job, real corporate job. Overall, it was good. I mean, I learned a lot. There's some habits that I still carry with me today from my time in claims. And as an underwriter, what we did was assess risk.
Yeah.
We gather information, we evaluate it, and we look at different options that we have available, and then we make a decision. So those basic skills as an underwriter, I still use today, just in life or just in evaluating options and making decisions. So overall, it was a good experience. It took me up to Rockland County. I've got some lifelong friends, and you and Miss Gibbs and Danny Schindler, and still in contact with Nancy Maroney and folks like that.
Yeah.
So overall, it was a good experience.
That's all, and one thing I thought about was
Patrick Sando too. I'm sorry, Patrick.
Oh
Sando.
yeah. That we, if you notice, because it was diverse. We had a diverse office underwriting, but we were also located in the concentrated areas where African Americans live. So we, group of us with Ann, we were in Brooklyn, and then you and Cynthia, God rest her soul, was in the Bronx. So did you? I mean, when you look back on it, that was quite interesting that we were in those areas assessing risk, as opposed to Westchester or Rockland.
Yeah, it was. And eventually, I started underwriting agents in New York, in Manhattan as well. Thurman and those guys. I forget his name. He was on 72nd Street. But yeah, started in the Bronx, and then moved to other boroughs. So yeah, that is interesting upon reflection. Sure.
Yeah.
And
so, did you? So in 2007, you decided to follow your dreams.
Right.
And so, what ultimately gave you the courage to do that?
Actually, you know what? Very quickly, there was something that happened at Allstate, and then there was something that happened at the company that I went to after Allstate that really pushed me. I remember when they announced that the region was closing. We were in Pearl River.
Okay.
And they were going from 27 regions to 17, whatever. And I remember the then AVP making the decision, or making the announcement, and how people were understandably distraught. There was crying in the room and everything. But the thing that disturbed me was that there were so many people wondering what's going to happen with me. I didn't feel comfortable being in that position. I didn't feel comfortable surrendering my fate to other people and having that mindset of I have to worry about what someone else is going to do to provide an opportunity for me. So that was one thing. The second thing was the company that I went to after Allstate. I was there for 5.5 years. I'd done great work, or done good work, 5 consecutive years, promotions, company car, home office, and the whole nine. And they came at me really foul. Really foul. And it got to a point where just to push this forward, I was able to negotiate a pretty decent severance package, and I'm on the phone with an HR person.
Okay.
And what I'm about to share, if she was on this phone, she would be embarrassed if she admitted what she said to me. I was returning my company car, and I said, well, I'm 50 miles from home. What's the plan to get me back home? She said, we'll have to see if anybody's going that way.
Mm.
I'm 50 miles from home.
Wow.
My wife at the time, now ex-wife, was pregnant with our son. Daughter Sydney was 2. And this came from the mouth of someone in the HR. It pissed me off.
Wow.
And I hope that's not, I hope that language isn't, too much for this podcast. If so, I'll clean it up.
No. I mean, hey, it's not at all.
Very quickly, man, during that summer, Keith, I sat down, and I'm a big Honeymooners fan. There was an episode of The Honeymooners where somebody came to Ralph's apartment who was this big business success. And Ralph said, well, wait a minute, you own this, you own that. How did you go from this dump where Alice and I live to becoming this successful business person? And the guy said, well, I sat down and I took stock of myself. So during that summer of 2001, June, July, I sat down and took stock of myself. And I said, okay, what can I do to hire myself? What things has God gifted me to do that I can do that don't feel like work that I can get paid to do? I was always passionate about public speaking. I was always passionate about storytelling and the power of words. And I always wanted to find out from the time that I was a kid how I can get into voiceovers. So I'm living in Rockland County at the time. I called up a talent agent, explained what I wanted to do. And they said, well, if you want to get into voiceovers, you should take acting lessons. Why don't you come and audit our class? I go to class one night. They gave me a script or some copy and charged me with the responsibility of acting this out. I was hooked.
Oh, wow. Just like that?
That was the summer of 2000 when I said, I got to find a way to do this. 4 years later, went through a very challenging divorce, turned 40, but this thing was still in the back of my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I decided to pursue it, got some pictures taken, met with an agent in Reading, Pennsylvania, the late Randy Donatelli. And he said, again, to push this forward, he said, look, I think I can get some work for you, as a model or in commercials. And he said, I need African-Americans. Then he looked me dead in my face, Keith. But I need dependable African-Americans.
Wow.
Randy,
Okay.
I'm not mad at you. Randy has a sour experience, but he said to me, and he's since passed away as I get to the close of this, he said, look, never give up. Things change on a dime in this business. Stay in contact with me. I was working for Dun & Bradstreet at the time. I eventually started working for Dun & Bradstreet. And one Wednesday, 2 years later, he called me up. I think I have a spot for you in a commercial. What are you doing? Friday. Nothing. So it was I was still living in Pennsylvania. I was in Bethlehem at the time. And it was a regional commercial for a health facility called Coordinated Health. And I was just playing a patient undergoing therapy. So I was with my church choir at the time, and I was so excited when I got the file that I shared it with them. I said, look, don't blink, because you'll miss me. That's me on the 14-second mark, laying on the table, getting stretched out. That's me at the 21-second mark, running on the treadmill with my back to the camera. And that was my first commercial. And that gave birth to everything else that followed. That one commercial, that regional spot, gave me the confidence that I could compete, that I could get more work like this. I could build relationships, eventually seek some training. And I just set my sights on larger opportunities from that point on. And that was September 21st, 2007, when I filmed that commercial. So we just celebrated the 15-year anniversary.
Wow. The fact that you remember it to this detail, I mean, it really must have had a tremendous impact, not just on your life and your trajectory, but also on your kind of your self-esteem, because it was based on like, look, I'm good at it and I enjoy doing it.
Right.
And a lot of our young boys and girls don't get those moments where they have negative things that impact them. We talk all the trauma, but to have one of those moments where you can look back on, especially and remember the date where
Yeah.
it completely changed the trajectory of your life or just where you wanted to go. That's pretty impactful.
Well, thank you, man. It was all faith, man, and it was based in the belief that there were bigger opportunities available, bigger opportunities ahead, and that I had the freedom to pursue them. I was still working in corporate,
Mhm.
but I had to feed this other thing.
Yeah.
So those two things existed. There was a parallel existence for a while of working a regular job and also seeking out these other opportunities, man.
Mhm. And so when did you realize that you wanted to completely pursue it on a full-time basis, and what helped you to propel yourself to do that?
Um, I had a growing disdain for corporate life, and I just could not see continuing on that wheel. Um, the last long-term corporate job that I had was with a company called Olympus. I was there for a couple of years, and I by that time I had some theater credits under my belt. I had fallen into theater back in 2012 only because there was a dearth of commercial opportunities, and I happened to hear an ad on the radio that Touchstone Theater in Bethlehem was having auditions for this large production they were doing. And look, I just had to act. I didn't care what it was. It was theater, whatever it was. So I went to the audition, blessed to get cast as one of the principals, and I learned so much during that process. So by the time I had gotten to Olympus, I had a few theater credits under my belt as well. But I just had this growing disdain with corporate life,
Mm.
corporate life for a Black male, corporate life for a, educated, intelligent Black man with a hint of an ego. I just,
Mm.
it just became difficult, man. I mean, I was with
Right.
Olympus, and somebody was giving me a compliment. A coworker was giving me a compliment on how well I could write. And my manager at
Mm.
the time said, "Yeah, who taught you how to write so well?"
Wow.
I'm like, I'm 48. I was 47 or 48 at the time. And I don't think if I was someone other than a Black male, that question would have been posed to me, man.
Wow. Right.
So after I calmed down, I walked over to a cubicle and I said, "Do you know who taught me how to write so well?" I said, Sam Cooke and Smokey Robinson, Sting, because I get a lot of inspiration from songwriters, as I mentioned before, Stevie
Yeah.
Wonder.
Yeah.
But the fact that she had the temerity, if you will, to even ask, and I've thought about this many times,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the years
Right.
since this happened. I've shared this story with a few other people, and I can't figure out any way for that to be received as a compliment. If it was very underhanded, very sort
Mm.
of, passive aggressive, whatever negative term you want to assign to it.
And I'm sure when you felt you had to explain yourself,
Yeah,
and she looked at you
yeah. Who does this Negro think he is?
like,
Kind of
okay.
deal.
Yeah.
And that was a real awakening moment for me. And then the person we used to report to would have these microaggressions towards me. He would say to me, Roy's trying to outdress everybody in the office. He's trying to be the best dressed. He claims he can write so well. Let's give this to him to write. I'm like, yo, where's
Mm.
this coming from?
Mm.
Where's this uneasiness? Where's this insecurity coming from? Um,
Wow.
so things like that, man. I'm like, yo. So when that job came to an end, I jumped into doing a lot of background work here in New York. Now I was traveling from Pennsylvania to New York to do background work.
Okay.
So background actors are also called extras, right? The people you
Right.
see behind the scenes that don't have lines, right? It's just something, man. The late Stephen Covey said, it's easier to say no if there's a deeper yes burning on the inside. So I just felt, man, that this opportunity to tell stories, this opportunity to explore the power of words in this forum was something that I was called and meant to do.
Hmm.
And I could not and would not extinguish it.
Right. Right.
So those instances, man, what happened at Allstate, what happened at Atlantic Mutual, who ended up going down the tubes, that was a company where the HR manager said, we'll see who's going that
Right.
way.
Right.
What happened at Olympus, what happened with my divorce, all those things just provided log for the fuel to just really pursue who I believed I was and who I was coming to be at my essence.
Right. Right.
Tell
Absolutely.
stories. You know,
Yeah.
I use words to tell stories. So all those things drove me, man.
That's awesome. And so you mentioned background work,
Right.
and so I wanted to kind of delve in a little bit kind
Mhm.
of about the audition process. A year ago, I think it's about in my first season, I talked to three friends of mine who were actors out in LA, and they
Okay.
kind of hinted that during usually the audition process, they would
Right.
usually see the same individuals that were in the room,
Hmm.
and they dap each other up, and of course they were competing, but would still have this camaraderie. So I wonder if was it kind of is it the same kind of environment in New York?
Well, yes, but my exposure to it has changed significantly because of COVID, right? So
Okay.
before COVID, a lot of the times you would go into a studio, you would go to an office, and folks would, be waiting outside of a room to go on an audition. Nowadays, a lot of auditions are done via self-tapes. So you basically, use your camera, use your phone to record your own audition. You find a reader if there's somebody else in the scene, you record it, and then you upload it to your agent, your manager, or your or the casting director, and they make a decision from there, right?
Oh,
Before
okay.
that, when I did go to auditions, I would see people who I've seen on different sets, and we would, like you say, quickly dap each other up, and then you'd focus. Okay, let me make sure I'm getting myopic and getting ready for this audition, and not a whole lot of conversation that would take me out of my space. But yeah, that would happen prior to COVID. Now, self-tape auditions are not going away. Some in-person auditions have come back. I think I may have had one post-COVID. Most of the times you're uploading your own audition. And sometimes if you get a call back, which is a second audition, sometimes that's via Zoom or the kind
Okay.
of forum we're on now, or you might go in for an in-person audition, but they've gone down significantly because of COVID.
That's interesting. So do you prefer the self auditions? And is that challenging to do? Because a lot of
Hmm.
acting is, it's you feed on the energy of the other person, or at least the
Hmm.
people in the room, to kind of use those
Right.
inflections. And so being that it's self done, you have to kind of create that, I guess, on your own.
Well, you're right. I mean, and it requires another skill set that shows no signs of going away. So you do have a reader. For example, what I'll do is I'll have my phone set up just like I have it set up now, and I'll have somebody on Zoom who's reading the other
Oh, the other
lines in
part.
that
Okay.
scene, right? So I am responding to somebody, right? But I'm just recording my response. I'm recording both voices, but you only see me on camera. So it does require a different skill set, but it's still acting. It's still interacting with another individual. It's still, doing a scene. I enjoy them.
Mhm.
There's some people that, will try to buck the system and fight the system and want them to go away because of the efficiency for both the actor, and the casting directors. There's no sign of self tapes going away. So I use my background here, sans the picture, as my backdrop, and I get to work. And I do the
Okay.
scene. I do the scene. And I've been blessed to book some things based on self tape. So it's a process that works.
Great, great. Well, I want to show one of your work. Yeah, I pulled it up and see, give your thoughts how you were back then.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. I wonder what you're gonna show.
It's a surprise. It's a
Okay,
surprise.
wow. Oh boy. Am I gonna see this? Or?
Yeah, I think you'll
Okay.
see it.
All right.
Hold on.
Huh. I bet it's the bushy mustache one. Don't see anything yet. Is it running? Because I don't see anything. I can't even hear it.
Oh, you didn't see it?
I didn't see it. No, I can't. I don't see it.
Oh man.
I don't
Hold
know
on.
what's happening. Yeah, I don't see it. I didn't see it.
Oh man. Okay.
Which one was it?
I showed the J Law for Justice.
Oh, I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did.
Okay.
That was my third commercial, Keith.
Okay.
I had filmed a commercial in September 2007, another one around December 2007, and I actually had to audition for that one, right?
Okay.
So I auditioned for it. I was blessed to book it. We filmed it at some house in Newark, New Jersey that was used in some scenes in The Soprano, I was told. But that commercial was pivotal in boosting my confidence because one, I had to audition to get it, and I was able to book it. That commercial was a non-union regional commercial that ran for years.
Okay.
So I think it started airing sometime in the spring of 2008. And as recently as 2014, 2015, folks are telling me they saw this commercial. So that's what gave me the belief that, you know what, eventually filming bigger commercials that could pay me residuals, because as a non-union commercial, they just pay you one time and they run that thing in the ground in perpetuity, right? So, but because that commercial had such a long tail, it humbly led me to believe that there must be something about that spot that they like to keep running it for so long, and that eventually I could be in a position where I could audition for bigger commercials, bigger union commercials. Now that I'm a member of SAG-AFTRA,
Right.
that would have a larger scope. They would run beyond a region and would also pay me residuals. And I'm blessed to be in that position now. So yeah, I'm glad you picked that one, because that was a pivotal commercial.
Because what I noticed, and I don't know if this was interesting, that a lot of the commercials that I saw you had to deal with insurance. So I thought, so I was like, oh, it's almost like a full circle moment. You worked in insurance, and then you had several insurance commercials.
Yeah, that was, and I tell you, when I got the audition for that, the familiarity of knowing, having worked in claims before I got to underwriting, the familiarity of knowing the mindset of someone who needs to call an attorney to get what they believe they deserve from an insurance company was something that I could identify with.
Okay.
And I think that I was able to leverage that, to bring a sense of realness, to that spot. So that was an important moment in my career, because again, it led me to believe that bigger things were possible once I got to the other side.
Okay. And so I know you mentioned a lot of auditions of doing background work.
Yes.
But then you've been trying to, move on to more principal roles.
Right.
And so is the audition process different in that aspect? And what kind of adjustments or skills did you feel you needed to add in order to feel confident taking on those projects?
Well, great question. When you do background work, and I'm not one to poo-poo background work at all. I've been blessed with the background work that I've done, because it taught me set etiquette. It taught me to pay attention to what's going on within a scene. Background actors are actors. I was blessed to work on When They See Us, that Ava DuVernay directed some years ago. And she said to us, we had to act in a very emotional court scene. She said to us, background actors, you guys are actors. This is what we need. So there's some people who don't respect or look at background actors as acting per se. There is a different skill set that's required. You don't have to audition to do background work. You don't have to audition to become an extra. It's valuable work, but you don't have to audition. You may have to have a certain look, a certain height, certain demographics, but you don't have to audition. So when you start auditioning for principal roles where people have lines, it requires a different skill set. You have to be able to demonstrate that you're able to act, that you're able to adopt the personality and behaviors of that character in a way that's authentic, and the way that you interact with other people in the scene is authentic as well. So being able to act and being able to audition, those two skills are sometimes mutually exclusive. Those things are very important in securing principal roles.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, the couple more questions. So of course your kids and your family have seen you, they saw you as one way corporate
Yeah.
man, and then they've seen your journey of actually doing this. So what
Right.
have they, any words that they've given you, or what um did they say that made you feel proud that you had taken this journey?
My daughter Sydney, my younger daughter Sydney, just graduated from Hampton on Mother's Day, and she's a journalist now. And we've had conversations about humbly her seeing me pursue this passion of acting, of being a performer, and how that has fueled her desire and given her the confidence to pursue what she wanted to do as well. Maybe it's had some impact on my older daughter, Adrian, who's a lawyer and she's got 3 degrees. And I'm hoping that it's had some impact on my son, who's in his 3rd year at East Carolina University, and ultimately my granddaughter as well. But I know that my daughter Sydney and I have had conversations about her observing this journey. I mean, when I did my first play back in 2012, she was 13. Jordan was 10, and they would come to my rehearsals with me on the weekends when I had them, and I didn't want to not spend time with them. They would come to rehearsals with me, and they would play games, whatever. We'd go to lunch, come back and do another rehearsal. So they were troopers, and they've seen a number of the plays that I was in. So I think. Well, I believe that them observing me along this journey has also, given them the confidence that they can pursue what it is they want to do unapologetically by faith. But that's been a huge part of the journey.
Faith, right?
Absolutely.
And faith is very important. Especially going back to the clip, because you have to protect the dreams. There are going to be people that are not going to be aligned with your dream and your vision, and if they are not, also if they are negative people, they are going to try to push their negativity onto you. So
absolutely.
And the
So
fact that
you do have to guard it. I remember very quickly that commercial that you showed, that 1-800-J-Law. I remember sharing that with a friend of mine, and he told me that he shared it with other people, and they were clowning me. And I'm like, one, why would you share that if you're a friend of mine?
Right.
And two, what's there to clown? Because those same people or that same individual, when I post stuff today, whether it's on LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever, is applauding, and celebrating, but you couldn't celebrate that part of the journey because that begot the thing that you're celebrating now. So it's very important, man. And the overseer at my previous church, Greater Shiloh in Eastern Pennsylvania, used to talk about this as well. You can't share your aspiration. You can't share your dream with everybody. I mean, I was a 53-year-old Black man who was moving from Lehigh Valley back to Harlem primarily to pursue acting on a higher level when I moved back 4+ years ago, Keith. And very few people knew that. And I wasn't about to share that with a lot of people so that they could poo-poo my dreams or, what are you, crazy?
Right.
It was faith. So, and there was sometimes it's family, close friends or folks you've known a long time.
Right.
And I just pursued head down. This is what I'm going to do. You're on board, whether you're on board or not. This is where I'm going. So, just having that faith, having that diligence, having that determination, You know, because sometimes there's a residual effect on other people who were once naysayers.
Right.
You know,
Right.
sometimes it'll inspire them to say, you know what, if so and so did it, you know, maybe I can give this a try. You know, maybe I
Right.
can give it a try too. But you do have to protect it because not everyone understands. Not everyone, you know, supports. And it's not always about folks just plain hating. Sometimes folks just don't get it. Sometimes folks just don't see the vision, you know. And you know, you can have sight and not have vision. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Right.
just because just because another person doesn't have your vision doesn't mean that you should abandon it. Um, you got to go.
Right.
Sometimes you got to jump off the cliff and build your wings on the way down.
And I think, yeah, a lot of our boys, they abandon it too soon
Right,
because, you know, imagine if, just like you, if that friend meant a lot to you, you
right,
could have folded it up and said, well, you know, if they're
right,
clowning me, then I must be a clown. So
right.
therefore, I'm going to be hard and do, you know, what is respected in our communities and things of that nature. So,
Yeah.
but on the flip side, was there maybe a person, a couple that really, you know, mentored you and inspired you to keep going?
Well, that first agent that I mentioned early in our conversation, Randy Donatelli, he was one that said to me, "Never give up." He said, "Things change on a dime in this business. Stay in contact with me." You know, so I
Mm,
took that to heart, man. I mean, we this was 17 years ago when he said that to me. He became my first agent. He was in Reading, Pennsylvania. And again, he's since passed away. But those words meant something.
hmm
And they still do today. When I started doing theater in 2012, I worked with Touchstone Theater in Bethlehem. And the lovely, lovely Emma Ackerman, if she's listening, formerly Emma Chong, she told me um, after that was my first play. She
hmm
told me after that performance, we had a 5 show run. And she said to me, "You have talent." And what that meant to me, man, I had a chance to thank her when I went to a celebration of life for a director that I'd done a couple of plays with. And I
Okay.
told her last year through tears, man,
Right.
what that meant for her to say to me that you have talent. That still drives. She said that to me in 2012 after my first
Mm,
play.
right.
And that still buoys me. That still drives me today. The people that I work with, you know, W.T. George and host JP and all those folks, you know, Christopher Shore, who directed the play, the late George Miller, who was a director, Ara Barleeb, another director I worked with, you know, a bunch of actors I worked with down in Pennsylvania, were encouraging about what they saw God had gifted me to do on the stage or in commercials.
Yeah.
So, you know, those things fueled me. But um, you know, that experience with that company, man, where they told me 50 miles from home that, you know, we'll see if anybody's going that way to get you home. That lit a fire in me that still burns 21 years later, man.
That was the fuel. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just not going to be done that way. I'm from the projects, man. Don't let the veneer fool you.
I hear you.
I'm from the
I hear
projects of
you. I
Harlem
hear.
at that. You know, don't get this twisted.
Well, you have a chance to inspire some people that may be listening or will listen when this is turned to a podcast. So
Sure.
if someone has a, you know, they may say, "Oh, I have a dream,
Hmm.
but I just don't know when I can move forward with it." What would be 3 words of advice you would give them right now?
3 words of advice. Um, Faith, um, determination, diligence, and the other would be a 3 word phrase. It's like, do it now. You know,
Mm,
do something daily, regardless of how small you think it is, that closes the gap between where you are and where you'd like to be. You know, read some articles. If we're talking about acting, read some articles about how to get started with acting. You know, read another article, excuse me, about the different roles that people play, the agents, casting directors, managers. Find out where you can get training. Find out where the opportunities are. But do something by faith, and don't wait for anybody. Don't surrender your power to make a decision to anybody. Reserve that for yourself. It's fine to be influenced and encouraged by others, but don't wholly surrender your power to take a step forward to anybody. You know, one of my favorite affirmations is talks about sometimes you have to jump and build wings on the way down. You know, everything's not going to be perfectly set up. Everything's not going to be laid out to order. A lot of things are going to just, come as you go along, man. I mean, I try to share, I know we're getting to the end of time, Keith, but I try to share as comprehensive and as holistic a picture as possible about what my acting journey has been like. So I tell people, look, I used to travel from Pennsylvania to meet a 6 a.m. call time in New York, which means I was leaving my apartment in Bethlehem at 3:15 to get ahead of Holland Tunnel, Lincoln Tunnel traffic, so I can get to Brooklyn on time.
Right.
That's part of the journey. You know, I remember sleeping in Port Authority as opposed to going up to my sister's and sleeping on her floor and then coming back to Port Authority to get a bus back to Pennsylvania so I could get to my substitute teaching job that day. Jay-Z said this in a video that I saw on Instagram or Facebook within the past few months. He said, people are trained to emulate the end result, not the process. So, you know, there's a process, man. And don't be afraid of the process, you know, of paying your dues, you know, whatever label, whatever, however you want to define that. There is a process. And what folks see today, whether it's commercials that I have on the air now that have been running for a while, or, you know, I booked another co-star role in a TV show on Comedy Central. Those things are all the manifestation of many, many years and hours of work and of sacrifice. You know, so understand that your ambition is going to cost you something. Irrespective of what it is you're pursuing. If you're pursuing acting or becoming a doctor or an engineer, my older daughter Adrian can certainly speak to the sacrifices of going to law school full-time, working full-time, being a mother, you know, having a household to manage. It costs something, you know.
Yeah.
Solomon Burke, a great soul singer from the 60s, recorded a song about the price. You know, this is the price I paid, you know.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to pay the price and trust that there is a reward, you know, throughout the journey.
Yeah, and that's very awesome, especially in today. We always see the end result, don't really see the price, and so
you know
we have to. And though you've dropped some gems today to let people know, it's like, look, it's a process,
right?
And but if you stay faithful and determined and diligent and study as well, don't be afraid to study and in the little things, it will lead to better the little things will lead to better things. So that's fantastic. So before I answer my final question, what have you been doing recently, and what's around the corner for you?
Well, I just last month I was blessed to film a co-star role on a very popular show on Comedy Central called Aquafina is Nora from Queens.
Oh yeah, love that
So
show.
they're entering season 3. I thought season 3 was going to start sometime this month, according to an article that I read, but I guess that wasn't accurate. So we're waiting for season 3 to start. I have a role that's supposed to be in the 3rd episode of season 3. I still get calls for SNL, so I'm blessed to have a good rapport with the background casting manager. So I'm confident that I'll have more opportunities to work on SNL. I'm still auditioning, not only for principal roles on in TV and commercials, but also student films and print model opportunities as well. And I'm studying. I'm studying with the BGB Studios out of California. We have a Zoom class that I attend every Thursday. And I'm also studying with my buddy James Saccone, who runs a program called Show Up to Book the Role, Actors Axiom. So I'm going to jump back into his class soon as well. Outside of that, I serve as a substitute teacher for the New York City Department of Education. That's my day job. It gives me the flexibility of being able to take time off when I do have bookings, auditions, and the like, and it provides some earnings as well. So I'm continuing to study, continuing to audition, continuing to believe, and stay on what has been a very worthwhile journey, man.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I know that a lot of times, and usually, we focus on the things that we're doing, and that's always champion, but we don't always focus on how we're doing. So I
Right.
always like to end this question with all in the show with this question is, how are you feeling? How are you feeling as a Black man right now in the world?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling confident. I'm also concerned, man. I'm concerned about the plight of our youth. You see it in the headlines every day. I see some things in schools that really shake me to my core, man. There are instances I've seen where the absence of respect for authority is frightening. So those things concern me. Shootings. Seeing videos of a bunch of youths, trying to rob somebody or stab somebody or shoot somebody. Those things concern me, and I'm hoping that collectively we can play a significant role in reaching out to them to encourage them to make better decisions and to help them to understand that there are alternatives to that kind of behavior. So I'm feeling good. I feel healthy, mentally, spiritually, physically, socially. Single. I've been divorced now for 17 plus years. I don't know if I'll get married again. Quite honestly, I do respect the institution. I don't know if it's something that I'll do, but I feel good about my children, man, and what it is.
Right.
The adults, young adults now, and my granddaughter, what they're doing, family, where I am in life. So things are good, man. Things are good. I'm happy. I'm content. I'm fulfilled.
That's great. That's great. Well, I did want to end on the note that I'm extremely proud of what you've done, and not just the commercials per se, and SNL, but the fact that I mean, we didn't get to socialize as much at Allstate, but
Right.
the fact that you were able to, and I knew you're always great with words, and we'd hear some of the words and songs, and we would talk about that. You love a Sam Cooke, and the fact that you've been able to follow your passion and follow something that because we don't often enough don't get to do that, and the fact that you have been able to do that despite any obstacles that have come in your way, I really admire that and appreciate that. So thank you, for coming on today.
Well, thank you, man. And if I can offer just one last thing, Lucille Ball was quoted as saying that she would rather regret the things that she did versus the things she didn't do. When God nudged me around March of 2018 to think about moving back to New York, the last thing that I wanted was to sit there wondering what could have been. What if I had, I would rather have come here and fallen flat on my face than to be sitting in Allentown, Pennsylvania right now wondering what if.
Well, that's a great and that's a great way to end for everyone. Regret the things that you do, not the things that you don't do.
Right.
And so this is Keith Dent on Black Men Speak. Thank you for being on the show today, and thank you for tuning in. And we look forward to seeing you very soon.